I think comparison is something that affects our community, and not just our community, but abroad. And I think one of the things that people can do is that first, getting off of social media and also self-love. It starts within because we have all been built differently. We all look very differently, and having that confidence to say that you don't need that external validation from someone. As much as when you begin to love yourself, you have a glow to you. People see that. And it doesn't matter if you are not looking like the standard of what is dubbed as the standard in society. When you have that self-love, it's going to shine through.
Yes.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of experiences from in life with modeling and other opportunities through social media.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that I've learned to differentiate myself when it comes to social media is, instead of comparison, look at inspiration.
Ooh.
Label that album inspiration so that you can have that in your mind, that you're not comparing yourself to this person, but you're inspired by what they're doing. And that's going to change your perception about a lot of different things. So that's one thing I would say.
Hey y'all, welcome to Inside Out Podcast Season 2. I'm your host, Yamoria Wright. The intention of this podcast is to enrich your life with behind-the-scenes interviews and conversations from thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and creatives about how they live their lives from the inside out. Enjoy. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Inside Out Podcast, y'all. Wow, this has been quite the season. We are nearing, I believe this is our second to last episode of the season. And I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Before I continue, make sure you subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. If you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Audible, make sure you also give us a great rating, okay? Rate us, comment, let us know what you're thinking, and make sure you follow the podcast. All right. So without further ado, today with me in the studio, I have Banke Balogun, and we are going to talk all things fashion, entrepreneurship, and her network, Naija Gal Network. So stay tuned. Banke Balogun is a dynamic force blending the worlds of fashion, technology, and social impact. Banke is a fashion model, tech enthusiast, and notably, she co-founded Naija Gal Network, a professional organization dedicated to empowering Nigerian women. Driven by a passion for making a positive impact, Banke leverages this platform to connect women, fostering a supportive community. Through this platform, Banke strives to foster connections, creating a supportive community where women can share experiences, insights, and opportunities. Her vision for Naija Gal Network reflects her passion for building networks that have a positive impact on individuals' lives. Her commitment to social impact is further underscored by her past role as a public health advocate, where she focused on addressing health disparities for disadvantaged populations. Banke Balogun's journey is a testament to her dedication to connectivity, be it through fashion, technology, or advocating for the well-being of underserved communities. Banke, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Now, y'all, I've said this for the past few episodes, but we have been trying to get, I looked and our first pre-interview was in December. It was like December 7th
I think it was
something.
But I feel as if this year and last year just flew. It didn't feel like that much time. Yeah,
it did. And here we are on June 1st. 6 months and some change later, and we're making it happen.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. It is perfect timing. And this dress is just gorgeous.
Thank you. I was debating if I wanted to wear this dress because I said it's summertime, but it feels very fall-y. But then the weather today, it's very gloomy.
Yeah, but it also looks great in the studio.
Oh, I'm glad. I didn't know how I was going to look on camera.
Yeah. She's doing it, right, Miracle? Yeah, she's doing it. All right. So I'm going to ask you a wild card question. Mm-hmm. Who are you? Who is Banke?
Oh, gosh. I mean, that can change from Banke last year is different than Banke this year. Mm-hmm. I would say the Banke that I am today is how I would describe myself. Banke is eclectic. There are so many different facets of me where there's a saying, I think it was on Instagram or somewhere I found on social media, where in your life or just different people that you meet, they have different perceptions of you. And even you sometimes don't even know the perception of yourself. But if I could describe myself in one word, it would be eclectic. Because I can be a chameleon. One day I can be someone who's really, really outgoing and funny. The next day I want to be, in isolation by myself, watching Netflix. So I would describe myself as eclectic. And if I were to think of another word, who is Banke? Just a giver. I give to the people in my life. If I meet them for the first time, I'm always wanting to connect people. I really follow the philosophy, and maybe this is because I was part of Rotaract Club, Service Above Self. So I always like to serve and give with not expecting things in return.
Wow.
And I believe that's how God blesses me too. Is just that I truly believe that's my purpose in life, is to constantly help people out. But knowing how to set a boundary.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
But being, someone who's empathetic, but at the same time understanding, the intention as to why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right.
For example, right now I'm 31 and I think about my career trajectory. I first started off wanting to be a supermodel. And I remember having this dream as a kid in Virginia. I want to be a supermodel. I want to be a model. But then as I grew and evolved, I realized I really loved helping people, which is what led me to public health. So kind of going back to the eclecticness, that the way I've described myself is just, different stages of life. I would say there are different stages of Banke.
Right. Oh, like different chapters.
Yes,
even,
different
right?
chapters. Yes.
I love that. I love that. And also, y'all, she's very, very patient. It's been lots of rescheduling, and she's been patient and graceful, and very graceful.
I'm glad.
You're very graceful and patient. I know that I'm very graceful and patient. So when I see people who are the same, I always have to just say thank you. Because, I know, if it were anybody else, other people might have been like, you know what, why don't you just hit me up when you got it together? You look like you're not. I don't know.
Well, I feel as if, I'm a believer about timing. And sometimes when we think it's the right time to film or just be in a location at a specific time, it's not necessarily the right time. So I think it was perfect timing.
Yeah, I agree. Especially what we were talking about the other day. I think it was perfect timing. So how did you discover modeling? And what do you think drew you to modeling? Was it expression? Was it the fashion? All of it?
Yeah, that is as I look down, that is a really good question about what led me to fashion. So, I just recently found this out a couple years ago that my parents told me when I was a kid that I always, people used to always say, oh, you should put your daughter in modeling. She looks like she could be a model. And I remember my mother saying, we want her to be able to make that decision herself if that's something that she's passionate about in the future. And it's crazy because I didn't even know that was something that people were putting on me at a younger age. But what led me to want to do it is, I was always really skinny. That was one thing. I was always really skinny as a kid. I used to get made fun of so much. And I remember looking at the fashion magazine saying, you know what, I want to be like this. I love fashion. It's something that I'm passionate about. I was looking up to Naomi Campbell, to Beverly Peele, all of the Black fashion models, and I always wanted to do it. And one thing I would say about myself is I am someone who I tend to have big dreams, but I act on it. So, people at the time, I was living in Virginia, which I'm sure and other people who are watching know there's not really a fashion modeling market. And I was determined. I didn't give up. When I was 10, I think between 10 or 13, I used to have my mom submit me to the guest model searches. And my sister would take, little pictures and say, okay, hopefully we'll get it. And I used to imagine what it would be like to get a campaign. And although that didn't foster into something, it was when I was 16 years old that I told my mother, I really want to model. This is my dream. This is my passion. And I can't do that here in Virginia. So she actually took me and her, we moved to California so I could pursue my dreams. And within 3 months of me having moved here, I got signed to an agency. So I was in high school at the time, and sometimes I would miss class to go to castings. And that was, the rest is history.
Wow. Do you miss it?
I miss being able to do it as much. So I still model, but not frequently as much as I used to. But one of the nice things I would say that I'm blessed with is that throughout my modeling career, I was able to do this with, working full time. And I was able to balance all of it, which I know a lot of people will probably think, how is she doing it? She must be crazy. But I'm a firm believer of balancing things because, with modeling, there's a lot of rejection and you may not get opportunities. So I always think it's important to have things that you're doing outside of that, whether that be a passion project, whether that be another career. That is something that I've always, held as a belief.
Yeah. And how do you make peace with that transition? Because I mean,
Yeah.
to go, right?
Yeah.
Modeling to public health, important work.
Yes.
But different work.
Different work. Very different work. Very different work.
How did you make peace with that transition?
Yeah, that's a good question. So how I made peace with that transition is I would say I knew at the time I was really passionate about other interests, but I still was passionate about modeling too. I didn't want to let go of that. So I made peace by finding a way to still do what I love, but not in the full scale. So when I would work, I would work my job within healthcare. I would do modeling on the weekends. I do photo shoots on the weekends. So I made peace with the fact that I may not be able to do this, every Monday through Friday, but I could still find ways to do it in my free time. So there was a time that when I was living in the Bay Area, I was shooting so much. I look back at my book back then. Sometimes I was doing 2 shoots a day and then hanging out with people and then still doing, I had a lot of energy. Yeah. I don't know if I could do that anymore now, but I was just really, really passionate about it. And I look back, sometimes I'll look at my archive photos on Instagram because my style has since evolved and I'll say, oh my God, Banke, you are really dedicated. So that's what truly led me to see that, when it comes to modeling, when it comes to other things that I do, just taking that initiative. That's something that I've always done within my career. But that was really how I made peace, is just making sure I found a balance and understanding that although I wasn't able to do it full time, I can still find ways to enjoy my passion on the weekends or, maybe when it's a holiday.
Right. Have you ever considered coaching?
I actually have coached. Okay. I actually do sometimes.
I might need to coach me in a photo shoot. My sister tells me my photo, she's like, stop posing like this. You just pose like an auntie. I'm like, she's like, stop posing like a superhero. And I'm like...
My sisters, ironically, they do something similar, but it's funny. Sometimes when I take photos of my friends, they're like, you're a model. Tell me how to go. Tell me how to pose. Tell me how to pose. So I actually do help out people who are interested in becoming a model or have modeled. So I do it really informally. I've been doing this now, I would say, for a couple of years. So sometimes I'll give them advice based off of their image, if they're like a commercial model or if they're a high fashion model. And then from there, even if they're not in the state of California, I'll recommend a lot of agencies for them to pursue. So that's one thing that I do on the side. I've done this now for a couple of models and, it's worked out.
Look at you. Yeah. Extra gifts and hustles. Oh, yeah. I love that. What drew you to public health? Let's talk about that.
What drew me to public health? So I actually wasn't interested in public health at first. That's the funny thing. So I'm Nigerian and, with the professions, it's lawyer, doctor, nurse, engineer. I actually wanted to be a psychiatric doctor. Oh. And I had those dreams too with modeling at a younger age. So when I was in high school, when I was applying to college, I was applying under pre-med. So I had gotten in for pre-med in certain universities, but then I ended up going to Cal State Long Beach and doing, I think it was pre-chemistry or something similar to that.
Okay.
And the classes were... I said, God,
you
send
said,
me I said, I cannot. These classes are really difficult. So I struggled with the classes time and time again. And I said, you know what? I don't know if I really want to be a doctor because not only the classes, am I truly passionate about it? What is my motivation? I knew at the time I still wanted to help people, that I wanted to make an impact, make a difference, but I don't know. At that time, I said, I don't think it's going to be in the capacity that I wanted it to be in the capacity of, being a psychiatric doctor. So I said, what? I consulted my, how would you say, a college advisor. So I consulted my college advisor. I said, I don't think that medical school is the right path for me anymore. Maybe in the future, but what is something that I can do that is a little bit similar to it? So they said, you can study health science. So what is health science? They said, yeah, people tend to study it who they might want to be doctors later on or nurses or something in between and do public health. I said, okay, I'll do this. So I took a lot of community health courses within the health sciences major, and I fell in love because I naturally like to help people, and it was just something that stuck with me. So at the time, my dreams had transpired from being a psychiatric doctor to public health advocate. So when I was in college, I did a lot of different things. I worked with people who had HIV AIDS. When I finished college, I worked with people who were refugees and torture survivors. So I've worked with a lot of different populations. I would say the most common population I work with is HIV AIDS. So pretty much advocating for people to get back into care who hadn't been in care anymore. So that was that was a tough job. And it was, I learned a lot from that role, but that was a lot of the things that I did in the past. So when it comes to that and having the ability to still help people, but not necessarily in the capacity that I would have as a psychiatric doctor, I still felt fulfilled with going through that path.
Okay. That's amazing. And this is a big wild card question, but having worked in public health and really literally been in spaces with people who, maybe had lost complete hope or, were losing hope. What advice do you have for people with regards to all of the current events happening in the world, how they can get better in touch with humanity, people who are different from them? Because based on the work you do, you have a huge amount of empathy and capacity to connect with people who maybe don't look like you, don't have the same background. Yes. What advice do you have for people who maybe don't, I'm not going to say don't have the ability to connect, but want to better understand how to connect with others who are different from them?
That is a really, really good question. I feel as if it's, there are different aspects of it. The first thing I would say is that people need to talk. And talk to learn from other people, but not talk to respond. So even me as someone I'm Nigerian and born in America, so Nigerian American, I understand that my background and my life path is different from others. And understanding that what you may deem as right or what you may deem as something that, this is my way or the highway, people don't have that same lens as them. So that's one thing I would say is that for people to be able to not only work with, but understand people from different backgrounds is to talk a little bit more to them, find out their experiences, and find out how that shaped them to who they are today. And another thing, too, I would say is logging off of social media.
Ooh.
I think we have, it's for me, it's interesting because I am a millennial and that there was a time where, we weren't always put on social media, where we were able to engage and interact with people. And sometimes I do feel as if the constant, overload of social media has caused for a lot of people to become desensitized to a lot of different things. So I think logging off sometimes and, taking a walk, doing something fun, being with friends is going to allow people to get back to that social aspect that some people might have had before or just need to get, now, because there's a lot of things that are going on right now. And I think sometimes logging off is the most important thing.
And what you're saying, even like, they say, disconnecting to reconnect.
Yes.
I think that's Big Sean that says that actually.
Yeah.
But is it you, Big Sean? But the importance of that though, right? And being able to disconnect from social media so that you could actually look someone in the eye and like, oh wait, you're another human being. You're not just a face. You're not just in a square. You're not just in a Zoom box.
Exactly. Exactly. And for me, when I was out in the field, I call it the field. So when I was in healthcare, I recently left healthcare. So I am in that digital space of working remotely since I work in tech now. But even just, through my network or just through my friends, just having those conversations. And one thing I would, recommend for people who it may be challenging for them is to read up on books about, communication or just understanding different cultures. Another thing about me, too, is that I have been able to connect with a lot of different people and cultures from my background and just personal life because I study a lot of different cultures. So it's random, but when I was a kid, I used to always watch the History Channel. And I am someone who not only watched the History Channel, but I like to read up on like a lot of different cultures and learn about different languages and listen to different music. So I've noticed that when I meet people from a different culture, I always have something that I can think of that I can relate to just based off of when I was younger.
She giving y'all networking tips.
Yes, networking tips.
She giving y'all money tips.
Yes, but it's something that I'll just pull from my head. If I meet someone from a specific culture, it is something that I'm like, oh wait, I actually, maybe watch a TV show from that culture in the past. And people want you to be able to connect with them when it comes to their culture too, so they can feel as if they are better heard and understood. So that is one tip that I have.
Yeah. How to make connections.
Yes.
I love that. Okay, so before we get into Naija Gal Network, I want to ask you one more question with regards to our local community or global, because you know what's going on in the world. What are some disparities that you feel like people should be made aware of that are happening today, especially in a big election year? What are some things that you think you need to be aware of this and or read into this more because it's directly impacting us or globally impacting us as citizens? know. There could be a couple of things. I know there's big questions.
So the question is, what is affecting us?
Mm-hmm.
What are some disparities
that you think people should be aware of?
I got to come back to that question.
Yeah, no problem. We'll go back to it.
That requires a lot
and
of,
it can be global or national, right? It doesn't have to be. But I think it's important, you know, with your background and also considering the fact that since a child you've been watching History Channel, learning about people.
I have, literally,
you know,
yes.
I think it is important right now. In this, and you know, speaking nationally, there is a lot of discouragement when it comes to trust in government, either local or or national, or federal, and I think that it's really important for people to kind of be recentered on why it's important to vote, why it's important to pay attention. But let's get into Naija Gal Network.
Yes.
How did you get into Naija Gal Network? I mean, we talked about it briefly in your bio, but let's get into the nuts and bolts of how you were called to that. That's very successful, but it's a heavy lift as well.
Yes, heavy lift, but passionate about it. Yes,
you're passionate about it. Yeah.
So how I was called to that is, so I think back to college. I know I'm talking a lot about college as if I'm a recent college grad, but I'm not. But I think back to college, yes. And I think back to how I was really active in my community. So I graduated from Cal State Long Beach. And back then I was the president of Rotaract Club. So the saying is service above self. And I still feel as if I'm fulfilling that with NGN. But I remember building that from the ground up. At that time, the club had been inactive. There was no members.
Wow.
And I remember I said, you know what? I'm going to make this, I'm going to reactivate this at Cal State Long Beach. So I found out who the person was who was running it. I said, hey, I'm going to put together a committee. I'm going to get my board together and I'm going to reactivate this because it had been inactive for probably 2 years and made a website, got my friends to be part of the board. So I was a president, had some co-presidents. And then from there, just, did a lot of community service. That was the purpose of the club. So I think back to when you mentioned calling, it made me think about that because I believe that I've always been on the path of my calling. I just hadn't let it fully fester yet.
Right.
So I was already, God was preparing for me for this. That's how I feel like it. I had that little, it wasn't little, but the president of the Rotaract Club, and I was slowly developing skills to be a leader. After that, was doing healthcare administration. So I realized I've been put in a position of leadership, which has gotten me to where I am now. So going back to answer your question about what led to Naija Gal Network. So I'm actually not originally from California. I know I was mentioning a little bit earlier that I moved from Virginia, but originally from New Jersey, but moved from Virginia to California. And I noticed that the Nigerian community in the tri-state area, as well as the DMV area, very, very well connected, tight-knit community. And when I moved to California, I felt really disconnected from the community just because I'm not from here. I don't even know how to start with, mingling with people in the community. So that was one of the things that happened. And my co-founder as well, we both are not California native. So I actually met her back in 2021 when Afrotech was virtual. So shout out to Afrotech for connecting us. So Afrotech had a virtual LA happy hour, and I remember being so scared to go because of the pandemic. I said, I don't want to catch COVID. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pray and I'm going to go in good faith. So I'm glad that I went because that's where I met her. And then a couple of months had passed, and we had been out of touch for a little bit, but a couple of months had passed and we had reconnected. And then we ended up having brunch together and both talked about our experiences as Nigerian women where, there's so many of us, we need to have a community here. So I remember she said, let's just create a group chat, group chat on Instagram. Let's invite all the Nigerian girls we know. So I was inviting all the Nigerian girls that I knew in the group chat. And then she had some people that she wanted to invite. So we were trying to figure out a name. Is it Naija Girls Connect? Is it Naija Gal, whatever network? And they said, yeah, let's just do Naija Gal Network. So we did that. We had 25 girls in the Instagram group and everyone's like, oh yeah, nice to meet you all. We told them about our idea. So it was very, very informal. I mean, Instagram group to what it is now, it's a really big blessing. But we had our first inaugural event. About 40 girls showed up and it was potluck style, which is really nice. We rented out a Paris space. And from there, because of the success, we decided to formalize it. So what turned out to be 40 girls in LA has now become to be now we're at 300 plus members.
Wow.
All over the world. So we have some members in Lagos and London. We've had a few meetups in different places, and a lot of girls have fostered new friendships from it. So it's been amazing.
It's amazing. This is the really the third time today, each of the interviews I've had. One of the common themes, that the through line is being called to create a space that doesn't already exist.
Yes.
And then watching that space grow.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Really solutioning what you feel needs to exist in the world versus just being like, oh, this doesn't exist. You know what I mean? But it's like, it doesn't exist. Okay, what do I need to do to make sure that it exists?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? If I'm noticing it, if I'm called to it, if I'm noticing it, then I am called to it.
Exactly.
You know? So I absolutely love that. What's up for the future? So it's only been 3 years now.
It's been
2 even maybe?
About a year and a half now.
A year and a half?
A year and a half
Okay.
now, yes. So
Okay.
it's been about a year and a half. So right now we've been focused a lot on, I know that you had asked what's next, but right now we've been focused a lot on exposure, getting people to know about what's going on. Because I know you were mentioning a lot of people felt they were called to it. And I truly believe my co-founder and I were called to it because we have been so passionate about it and dedicated about it. But really getting the word out there that we exist. Right now, to my understanding, there is no other community that is global that is focused on just Nigerian women. That's a digital platform as well as hybrid, since we're doing in-person and virtual events. A lot of them tend to be focused on, events or other things like that, or just, men and women. So we saw the need and wanted to mitigate that and provide a community, because there's so many successful Nigerian women who are really doing so well in their careers, and just having a platform for them to connect with each other, whether that be for jobs, for friendships. And whenever I log on to social media, I get so happy when I see some people from the organization, still friends or it makes me happy, because it's not for me, and it's just for other people to help. Because I remember someone told me, you don't realize the impact that this organization has had on me. It came at the right time. So hearing that, it allows me to know that, wow, I'm making a difference in some shape or form. And I hope that, pray that continue to make that difference years down the line. Yes.
Absolutely. What kind of services or community building do you provide? So, say someone, they're watching and they're like, okay, I want to join, but I'm looking for, career coaching, or, I want to be able to have some, I live out here by myself. Where can I go for Thanksgiving? Like, things like what kind of community activations? And
so we've done a handful. I love that you mentioned the Thanksgiving. So we had a Friendsgiving. So we do different community events in LA, and now we're encouraging members to host their own events to, facilitate within the community. But we've done things like Friendsgivings. We've had little meetups. We've done a Nollywood themed brunch for people to dress up in Nollywood clothes and, have some food and meet some new girls. So for people who are just moving to the community, or, whether that be in LA or another state, what we do is we like to facilitate connections and shoot out an email or post in our Slack channel, hey, someone's new, they're looking to connect with other people. Some other things that we've done is that we've had members who are looking for jobs, or, we have a job posting board within our paid member platform. So there are different things that we offer to the community. Most recently, our most recent initiative has been with our members who are mental health practitioners or focus on mental health. So they did an initiative on social media where they highlighted mental health, not only in the Nigerian community, but how that looks like for them as well. So that was really, really impactful and well received. So moving towards more initiatives to focus on our community. And we have a lot of things in the works too for event planning for the rest of the year. So looking forward to that. Yes.
Nice. I love that. And there you go again. What you wanted to first be in psychiatry.
Yes.
And there life has its way.
Yeah, it's still followed.
There's always those full circle moments where you're like, oh, I'm here anyhow.
Yes.
You know
I got back here.
I got back here anyhow. Yeah. And in terms of filling that gap, what are some stories you can share with people with regards, because you start kind of talking about the testimonials, but like, what are some stories where you've seen it really make that difference? You have mental health practitioners.
Yes.
for people who definitely are seeking services,
Yes.
right? And how is that customized within your community? What's the importance of that to you?
Well, I think it's really important because I know even as, Black women, one of the things that people have mentioned that they want to have a therapist or any type of provider for mental health or other services who looks like them. And that's been a challenge for a lot of people. I know there are a lot of different organizations focusing on this, but that was one of the things that my co-founder and I wanted to focus on when it comes to that we're showing members within our community, and maybe if they're not members, maybe if they're prospective members and they're, debating joining, that, hey, we're highlighting people who are in our community who are focusing and attending to what hasn't really been talked about at all in our community.
Yeah.
So just having someone, that familiar face, it just motivates them and empowers them to, work with those people or work with people outside of them who might look like them.
And there's also the cultural aspect, right? Being able to have a professional who understands what it's like. Because there's layers to it. Yes, it could be, being a Nigerian woman, but being a Nigerian American woman, what is that experience like? And then you get into the micro of living in LA or different career paths, right? There's the different experiences and the importance of that. What are some local causes that you feel people should be made aware of and support?
Yes, that's a really good question. So one of the local causes in LA that I feel as if a lot of people should be aware of, and I'm aware of it from my public health background, is International Rescue Committee. So they're a humanitarian focused organization. They're a nonprofit based in LA, and they also have offices all over the world and New York as well. And I think a lot of people should really be aware of that because they're doing great things, not only locally, but globally as well. And it is one of those things that I really want to get back into volunteering. So looking at that too for potential volunteer opportunities.
Awesome. Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. How do you want to change or help inform the way Black girls see themselves when it comes to beauty standards?
One of the ways I would like to change how Black women see themselves when it comes to beauty standards, it's kind of going back to the last question that you had asked and me responding of getting off of social media. I think comparison is something that affects our community, and not just our community, but abroad. And I think one of the things that people can do is that first, getting off of social media and also self-love. It starts within because we have all been built differently. We all look very differently, and having that confidence to say that you don't need that external validation from someone. As much as when you begin to love yourself, you have a glow to you. People see that. And it doesn't matter if you are not looking like the standard of what is dubbed as the standard in society. When you have that self-love, it's going to shine through.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. Yes. Y'all, that's a good tip, that work. And also staying off of social media.
Yes.
Like, this is probably the millionth time it's been said on this podcast this season, seriously. And changing your relationship with social media. Like, what is it for?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Versus like allowing it to use you, manipulate you, torment you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Into like scrolling like, oh my gosh, I don't look like her. I don't look like her.
Like, and social media, it's great to meet people. I've gotten a lot of experiences in life with modeling and other opportunities through social media.
Absolutely.
But one of the things that I've learned to differentiate myself when it comes to social media is, instead of comparison, look at inspiration. Label that album inspiration so that you can have that in your mind, that you're not comparing yourself to this person, but you're inspired by what they're doing. And that's going to change your perception about a lot of different things. So that's one thing I would say. Yes.
Not comparison, inspiration. Love it. Yes. Love it. And then going back to Naija Gal, the way you say Naija?
Naija.
Yes.
I like how you say it though.
Because you kind of, I feel like I said Naija, but I feel like you still got a little spin on it. For Naija Gal Network and for women who are looking to have that community, what advice do you have to Nigerian American women?
Yes.
And as pertains to beauty standards and just identity?
That's a big question. That is a big question. So the advice I would have to Nigerian American women when it comes to beauty standards and perception is to think, this is another loaded one. I got to sit and think about this one.
You can work your way through it too.
Yeah. So I would say for Nigerian women, specifically Nigerian American women, when it comes to beauty standards and self-confidence, is similar to what I was mentioning before when it comes to having that self-love.
Yeah.
One thing that I recommend a lot of people to do is there's a lot of YouTube videos, and I know you're talking about social media, but there's a lot of YouTube videos that are really, really inspiring. And one of the things that I like to do, which works for a lot of people, is when you wake up every day, what motivates you? What is your drive to wake up every day? And when you look at yourself, something that's not a physical appearance, what is making you happy? Like, what do you have within yourself that is causing happiness that other people are looking at and say, this is exactly why this person's in my life? So a lot of it is self-reflection. And I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not professionally trained. But one of the things that I would say is that when it comes to beauty and self-love and how people look like in society and everything, I really truly think that a lot of it stems from, this is another one that I have to figure out how I'm going to phrase this. I think what people can do is take away the standards and expectations people have placed on themselves, other people have placed on themselves. Because I truly think a lot of this is because people outside of themselves have placed standards, whether that be physical standards, whether that be social standards on themselves. And when they're thinking about why they want to look this way, why exactly, what's the root cause of that?
Right.
Is it because society is telling you to look that way? Is it because you truly want to look that way? Because if it's driven by self-desire and self-motivation, then comparison shouldn't even be an option. So just really taking an understanding and looking within yourself to understand why comparison is something that's there. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. No, yeah. And I especially really love you saying, look in the mirror and think, outside of my physical, what am I providing to people?
Yes.
Why do people love me? Why do I have these friends? Like,
Yes.
And if it's all physical, then it's like, I guess these people really aren't my friends, you know what I mean? So, or they don't really love me for me, right? Those other things. I absolutely love that. Before we close out, I have to ask my question that I always ask, hurt, heal, joy. What is currently hurting you? It could be you or in the world. What do you want to heal? And what brings you joy?
So I'll start off with the good. What brings me joy? What brings me joy? What brings me joy would be the people in my life. I am so blessed. I have amazing people in my life. So I'm very blessed, and I thank God for that, that I have a tribe who I can call up whenever anything is going bad, or, when I have any wins. So I have a very, very good woman. I have a very good community of women around me and other friends around me. So that's amazing. What hurts me? Or what do I feel hurt by?
Or either.
Okay. So what hurts me is, this is actually local to LA. So what hurts me is I feel as if people have felt as if they don't have a sense of community here. And I feel as if that has caused people to leave LA or, distance themselves from LA. And I think when it comes back to that, feeling a lack of community, that there's a lot of different organizations and people who are building great things. And I would say that hurts me because it's, there's amazing people out here and there's a negative perception about it. So I think it makes me sad to hear that, because me living in LA, I have a very strong community, and I would say that hurts me. The other thing is, what was the other part?
Oh, hurt, heal, joy. What do you want to heal?
What do I want to heal? What do I want to heal?
It can be connected to what hurts you. Often it is for people.
Yeah. What would I want? I would want to heal people feeling lonely and lost in LA, because this place can be very daunting for a lot of people. It can be very daunting. And I think for me, because I moved to California at a younger age, I was able to build my community and make my connections here. But I do realize coming here at an older age, it can be sometimes challenging. So that would be what I would want to heal, is people who feel as if they come here and they don't have, a solid friend group and don't have a community.
I love that. Thank you. Say we did it.
Yes.
How can we follow you and support you? Please let the people know. You can let them know.
Yes. So you can support by following Naija Gal Network on Instagram, as well as my personal page, Le Banke, and also looking at naijagalnetwork.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. We did it.
Yes.
Y'all, I love it. This has been another episode of Inside Out Podcast. Before you go, y'all already know the deal. Make sure you subscribe and give it a thumbs up, a heart, comment on YouTube. I just feel like I just did. Those are not gang signs. And then If you're listening on Spotify, Audible, Amazon Music, or Apple Podcasts, please rate, comment, let us know how this podcast and this episode is resonating with you. Banke, thank you so much.
Thank you for
Did I get your name right too?
It was close. It was close.
Say it again. We're going to do it.
Banke.
Banke.
Banke, yes.
Banke.
Yes.